But yes, welcome to the Fireside Chat on February 2023. I'm delighted to be able to introduce you to Jagongo Obara, who's joining us from Kenya. He is going to give us a presentation about the importance of partnerships with drone businesses or drone projects, drone project management. And I think it's a really critical issue at this particular point. If I can just sort of give a quick overview of Jagongo. He's one of the authors in the best-selling international Drone Professional 3. So absolutely delighted. So he's part of that. He's also a pilot. Am I correct that you're a commercial pilot?
Yes.
Yes, a commercial pilot, and has Jagongo Obara Aviation Consultancy Services, which, amongst other things, provides training and engages in youth programs, which I think we're going to hear about this afternoon as well. I understand that you're working in Uganda as well as in Kenya, and yeah, you've had a very interesting time getting into the drone industry, basically.
Yes,
okay.
it's been an interesting road.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, perhaps, please, if you would like to proceed with your, give us your presentation and your advice on how to engage and get your partnerships.
Thank you so much for that, Louise. Thank you so much for the introduction. Let me try and put my screen up.
Let me just make you a co-host. Hang on a sec.
Okay.
That will make it easier for you. There you go. You're now co-host.
Okay. Well, thank you so much again, Louise, for the introduction. Basically, as you said, I am a commercial pilot, yes, but I've not done any commercial work in a long while. Mainly, my activities have been related to drone-related works. And, well, I guess I just find drone things a bit more interesting at the moment. And so that is where I am with my life. And let me just try and put my screen up just so that we are all looking at the same thing.
Okay. Yep, got it. Yep. We can see you.
We have it. Great.
Yep.
All right. So basically, what I wanted to talk about today is the importance of partnerships in drone project management. The partnerships in this case, which I'm talking about, is basically different stakeholders who is involved in running a project which has to do with drones. We do know that as much as we consider drones relatively affordable and it reduces the cost of doing business and all the nice things, when the idea finally hits the ground, it becomes a bit more challenging to implement. Not that it's a bit more difficult, but there's just a lot more variables that are taking place. And so what I want to talk about today is two aspects. And one is the drone project management and the challenges in developing nations, which are not really the same challenges that we might get in other nations. But we'll see how it goes as we progress along. And the other issue that I wanted us to discuss about today is how do we solve these issues? How do we get more partners involved? How do we make projects that are drone-related more sustainable and more streamlined to operate? And so for my presentation today, I'm going to use a couple of case studies that I've been involved in. My previous and most recent one was in Kalangala Island, where we were involved in ARV and medical drugs deliveries by drones. That was a very interesting project for me as a drone pilot, initially because I got involved with it not having any background in drone aviation whatsoever. I was fascinated about them, but I was not a trained pilot by then. Neither was I an instructor by then. And so I just got involved basically on the quality and safety assurance, which I had acquired from my previous aviation background. Currently, I am working on the CIA Drone Innovation Hub, which is a project which is aimed at getting locals and the youth in particular involved in not just drone flying, because basically that is what most drone academies are doing, teaching people how to be pilots. But you find that there's a certain population that is not pilot qualified yet, maybe in terms of age, and yet they still have ideas that they want to implement. These people want to break these drones and literally put them, assemble them up again. And with the access to information and a lot of YouTube videos, and they find it more challenging when they engage with the drone rather than when they just fly the drone. Because that becomes interesting for like 1 month, and then after 1 month of flying, it's not interesting anymore. Whereas on the maintenance and the engineering bits, you find that you engage these youths in a longer period of time, and the results from them become more sustainable at the end of the day. Stable Jet Drone Academy, Western Kenya branch, is my future project and something that I've been working on for quite a while. We'll have a chat about that quite in a bit. So let's jump straight onto it. Implementation matrix. The typical sequence of events in my neck of the woods that occur before a drone project is launched becomes very interesting. You get event number 1, which is pretty much the project conception. Project conception phase, typically in sub-Saharan Africa, involves talking to relevant stakeholders, which would, in the event of the medical drone deliveries, we had to engage the medical health department, which was the Ministry of Health in Uganda. And the Ministry of Health, being the current project manager, had to be involved first. And you can imagine the bureaucracy involved in getting a minister, for instance, which is what they had us do, getting a minister's consent on a project to deliver medical drugs by a drone in a remote island somewhere where she's not even heard of. And it became a bit challenging trying to relay the information and what you want to do and the background of the project. As much as it had been concepted initially by the university, which was in charge of running the project, they had done the assessment, and how they were doing it previously was they'd load the ARVs and the medical drugs from Kampala and drive it all the way to Entebbe by road, and then have these drugs put on a ferry, which would then go to the island. And then from the islands, they'd be received at the medical center. From the medical center, they'd now be dispatched by the ground medical facility agents, who would then now disperse it again by boat to the other various islands where the patients were. And so this whole chain just ended up being too complicated, too long, too tedious, too expensive. And yeah, so the campus decided, well, instead of, since we're already delivering the drugs and since the drugs already being supported by another partner, why don't we look for a more economical and more efficient way to get these drugs delivered? And use of drones was very good. But to get this project concept ready and up to scratch, it took us between 1 to 7 weeks just to get approval and just to let people know that, okay, this is what we want to do. Is it something we can actually do? And so that involved discussing the event and how it can be solved by the use of drone vis-a-vis the current method. And the current method in this case was the use of drones. Now, this basically is an image of what it took to get the project done. And you have our partners on this side, which was the Tanzania Flying Labs, who came in with expertise and the training. And we had the online training, which was done by We Robotics, courtesy of Drone Academy, which was a UK-based institution. And basically, I was there as a consultant on the safety and quality assurance side. And we had this gentleman who was in charge of the drugs and making sure that everything was medically fit for packaging. And Uganda Flying Labs also came in to assist with all the logistics and pretty much gluing everything together, since this operation was being done in Uganda. And they had all the necessary approvals to do anything. So it took us quite a while and quite a huge team just to solve one problem. And this is a problem that we wanted to solve. We needed drugs to be packed in a manner that is light enough to be carried by a drone, and also compact enough to be able to serve 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 patients in this case. But that is not all that the population needed. The population might need more, it might need less. And so I'm going to stop talking too much right now and allow the participants to engage in and help me probably discuss how this particular project probably could have been improved without involving too many stakeholders. Because from the previous clip, we've seen that we had at least 5 different individuals involved in just one project. And that, in essence, somehow raises the cost of the project in the long run, as much as it also involves as much participants as possible. So there is this 50-50 relationship that we need to get into, where the project doesn't become so expensive, involving a lot of partners, but yet sustainable enough to solve all the problems that need to be done by different stakeholders. So I don't know, probably somebody want to jump in and probably tackle the medical drone cargo pod bit, and somebody else can probably discuss capacity building.
I don't know if I can jump in first. Is that okay?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, when you sort of speak about the bureaucracy, and equally, just that 1 to 7 week delay sort of period, effectively, that sets the first challenge. How far do you think that should improve with time anyway, given that people become more aware of the value of drone delivery systems in this case, and there's no the suspicion of their uses perhaps dwindles. I'm just curious. I mean, how much of this needs? Is there a general program of raising awareness about the value of drones for this kind of activity?
Well, sure. you will find that basically the bureaucracy depends from state to state. I, for instance, do not encounter as much bureaucracy when I'm applying for a permit or for operations here in Kenya. But you find that in Uganda, with the military state and everything not so straightforward, it becomes more complicated because not everybody wants to own up to the project. Whereas in my scenario in Kenya, KCA owns up to a project and they handle all the background bureaucracy on your behalf.
Okay. Is it worth getting them involved as a part of the project directly? Can some of these the sort of governmental or parastatal organizations, can they actually be brought in directly into the project so they start to really own it, or does that add more complications?
It does It does a bit of both.
Mm.
It, as you can see from event number 2, you have the CA approval where they have to give the project a green light. And then event number 3 is now where the local administration comes in. And as much as you might get a green light by the CAA, and they're okay with the flights and they're okay with my license and everything, the local administration still has to come in, and they are the ones who don't necessarily understand what event number 2 is all about, or what happened in event number 2, but yet they need to give you a thumbs up before you do anything in their neck of the woods. So it just depends on where you are and your rapport with the local admin people.
Okay. I would imagine there's an element of frustration that you need to deal with different groups having different expectations and not, as you say, not understanding what's happening in the previous step and why is there a delay and what's going on, sort of questions.
True. There is an element of frustration which is involved, although frustration comes in because the system is still understanding what drones is about and how they can be used. So they also need this information broken down to them in bite-sized information that they can chew and nibble on and say that, all right, me as CAA, I just need to be involved. Is your drone airworthy? Are you licensed? Good enough. That's the information they need. And then for event number 3, they need to know that we're coming in to deliver drugs, or we're coming in to train the youth, or we're coming into. So that somehow reduces the effort on my side as a project manager. And it also helps the different stakeholders understand what their role is in probably what I'm trying to do.
Okay. Anybody else have any comment? Very quiet.
All right. Let me move on to this slide. So basically what we realized with the medical deliveries is, as much as we needed as many participants as we could, it's very simple to fabricate a cargo pod, for instance, to carry medical supplies. But then you find that the challenge comes in 3D printers are also not the most easily accessible things in developing nations. And if you do get it, the cost of using it then now outweighs the cost that you wanted to implement the project in. So I think reducing costs of projects goes a bit more into the equipment that are involved. In this case, once you have the cargo pod assembled, you need to plant it on an aircraft. Putting it on an aircraft, first of all, is going to require another resource, because aircrafts are not that easy to come about. And this aircraft has to be manned by a trained pilot. Having a trained pilot also is not one of the most easiest things in developing nations. And if you do get one, the trained pilot might probably charge you costs that the medical superintendent is not going to charge you. And this gentleman was helping us with the medical loading and offloading, because you find that with the hazardous material, you can't let the pilot handle the contaminated goods or the medical goods, since he's not a trained medical person. And the medical person who's equipped to do that also needs knowledge on the drone and how it operates. So you get this whole triangle of everybody who needs to know what the other person is doing, and capacity building is something major that needs to be probably tackled, in my perspective, if drone projects are going to be managed in a more economical and efficient way. And moving on, This is my current case study that I'm working on. And the point is to engage the youth as much as possible into drone technology and to get them assembling drone parts and to get them repairing these things, understanding what a brushless motor is and non-brushless, because it does not make a lot of sense for this drone, for instance, to do its flight and do its mission. And once the mission is done, the people who are left on the ground have no idea about what just happened. And all they're left doing is seeing that a drone took off and it did this and it did that, and that's the end of the day. So my next challenge is pretty much how to make these projects sustainable. And the only way drone projects can be sustainable is if the local community is involved and if these drones and these assembly plants and these seminars are being conducted where they are. And this is something very interesting because you find that every time we go onto the field, we have a lot of crowd. We generate so much crowd and so much interest, and people want to know, what are we doing? What is this? How does it benefit us? And these are the questions that I am asking today. How do we make these projects that we are doing sustainable by involving these youth so that by the time they're getting onto the fields, they can explain it to the younger ones as well. So I'm going to leave it here for a minute and just engage the public. Just if anybody has something to say for now, or if somebody wants to step in and probably figure out how projects can be made more sustainable before we proceed. Any questions so far?
I can't see any hands. I'm curious. I love this photograph. You know, the interest that you must get. Have you? I think you were there for the last fireside chat with Virginia, sort of discussing
Yes.
that sometimes they've had difficulties. You know, that the communities have been unhappy with the use of drones. Have you generally encountered excitement rather than you know, concern and people being cross, for example?
Fortunately for me, I have encountered a lot of excitement. In fact, most of the time when we go into a field, we find that you have to dedicate a day or a few hours before the mission just to talk to the people and let them touch the drone and let them have a feel on it, because it generates more excitement than what the mission is all about. You will find that if in Uganda, for instance, when we were delivering medical aids, the percentage of patients that came for their drugs was such a small fraction, and we had to go and mobilize them and tell them, hey guys, your drugs are here, come and pick them up. And yet the population that came just to see the drone was overwhelming. So there's we got that opposite on our end.
Okay. You made me think of something just now. Who's funding the delivery project? Because yeah, I'm curious. Is that being funded by? I didn't catch if you said that, so I apologize. Who's funding it?
Yeah, this was being funded by a group of many players. Tanzania Flying Lab volunteered. They didn't actually fund it. They volunteered their training for the medical staff on how to use drones. I came in on the consultancy bit, and Uganda Flying Labs came in, and pretty much it was a conglomerate of people just volunteering. What can you offer to this project? And somehow that partnership is the essence of today's topic and why partnerships are really important in such projects. Because without that partnership, this was a good idea, which would literally have taken a longer time to take off. If such partnerships wouldn't have taken place.
Okay. I'm curious, what sort of distances were you traveling to deliver the goods here? Because I see it, using a multi-rotor as opposed to, like, say, a VTOL or a fixed wing.
Unfortunately, on this project, we were somehow misinformed, or we got the wrong aircraft.
Oh,
Because
okay.
the aircraft that was received at the end of the day was a multi-rotor. And as much as it could carry the cargo that we wanted, it was not best suited for the deliveries that we wanted to do. And this is where the mismatch came in the project management, and why I think we need to manage our projects and partnership arrangements much more efficiently, or let's say much more better, so that when a client, for instance, says that we want a drone to do X number of job, the medical people were not well conversant with what kind of drone do we actually need to get this job done. So that is where the communication mismatch came in, and so they ended up getting in the wrong drone, but somehow we had to make the mission work.
Yeah.
So yes, I do agree with you. The multi-rotor was not the most efficient drone for the mission, but unfortunately, it is a drone that was donated for the mission.
Okay, so you made a plan, made it work anyway. Yeah. Labor actually sort of says a similar question. Sort of, are you guys looking into getting the fixed wing or VTOLs? Is that something that you wanted to move on to?
In the future, yes, that is something we might look into. Although the project is with the Ugandan authorities, and I don't know how far or how quick they want to implement it. And
I'm sorry, say
so
again.
that is another challenge as well. Bureaucracy. It takes forever for a project like this to go from. It takes a long while. Right now, we are still at event 3 as far as the medical delivery is concerned. The event 2 has not taken place because the Uganda authorities are still not up to scratch. Although I am doing the same thing, or rather on the youth bit, on the Kenyan side, I'm not getting as much challenges as these young ladies and gentlemen right there have already been approved for their drone certificate course. And as they do their drone certificate course and build hours, KCA has allowed me to give them training as they work towards their license program. So it really depends from authority to authority. I'm getting a lot of goodwill on my side. Unfortunately, I didn't get a lot of goodwill on the Ugandan side.
Okay.
And so this is where I am at the moment.
Yeah. Sorry, excuse me. No, it's that's interesting, because I mean, one of the things I'm thinking, I think I didn't quite catch what you said about 3D printing, but it seems like you're reliant there that on someone donating the drone. How can you repair it? How can you maintain that service? I'm curious. I don't know what drone manufacturing is like. If there are local producers in Kenya, if that's an option, because I mean, needing to rely on outside technology, I would imagine presents a problem.
It does, yes. And that is where I am on currently project number 2, which is a drone innovation hub. And so this has come about from the challenges I learned from the previous project, which was the medical deliveries. And so you get a lot of challenges if there is no capacity building. If there's no medical people who understand drones, if there's no local people who can repair these drones, there's a lot of things that need to go behind the scenes. And so for me, I felt that my current priorities need to be in innovating solutions. And once we can innovate solutions, we can now digest and say, okay, we need a fixed wing for this particular mission. We need a multi-rotor for this mission. We need 3D printers to do this, and so on and so forth. it makes a project much more doable when you have a picture in mind.
Yeah, no, definitely. And are you, when you engage with the youth, are you I presume you're sort of explaining the bigger ecosystem as well, to sort of encourage people not to just think, I want to be a pilot, but I can be a mechanic, or I could be a designer, or I could be a you know, whatever it might be, software, data, information dissemination, that sort of thing.
True. That is what I was telling these young ladies and gentlemen. There's a gentleman over here who's interested in photography, and I told him, well, you don't have to learn to fly a pilot and just to fly the aircraft. Use the aircraft for photography. Whoever wants to become whatever they want to become in life, there are so many other avenues in aviation. Quality assurance, like what I do, safety assurance, like what I do. There's not necessarily piloting, but it's aviation related. So they're just giving them that information and just letting them know that there are options out there is really critical if things are going to be sustainable moving on forward. Without that human investment, that human resource, it becomes very difficult to sustain the projects.
Yeah, okay.
All right. In conclusion, basically, my whole presentation today was on how we can make our services more sustainable and how drones can assist us in doing what they're doing. As much as we cannot deny the fact that drones are here and drones will revolutionize the way we do things as human beings, in this case, sapiens, a good thing is that as much as drones are considered unmanned, autonomous, whatever you want to call it, we cannot eliminate the need for human involvement in this whole drone operations. The human involvement is what we need to manage better. And this human involvement includes all the partners that are involved. Me as quality assurance or consultant, other people as mechanics, the pilots, the medical people, if it's a medical thing, or let's say just the photography experts, if it's a photo shoot. All this human involvement needs to be managed in an efficient and sustainable manner that benefits everybody and the project in general. And this is what will bring about change to our developing nations and make our drone projects much more sustainable, because we have a lot of drone projects going along, but they don't last beyond the initial project that they were, can I say, conceived for. If I went out, for instance, with my drone to do a mapping on a farm, the farmer finds it uneconomical to re-employ my services again, as much as they find those services beneficial to them. And that is because the farmer needs to be empowered to learn how to use these equipments on their own, so they don't have to rely on expensive expertise or expensive skills from my side and from other people to get the job done. And yeah, so drones are here with us. Technology is here with us. Let's maximize it. Let's use it to our advantage. And let's keep the human interactions and the partnerships pretty much going, because that is what will make everything flow together. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Let me welcome any comments, any.
Yeah, can I ask you a question
reviews, there? If there are any.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Yeah,
Hello.
I hear you. Fantastic.
My name's Ian, and I'm dialing in from Ireland on the other side of the planet. I'm driving across the city. How cool is technology? You made a point there a minute ago that we need to enable the farmers how to do the flights themselves. But here in Europe, the legislation has shifted considerably, that businesses are now moving away from wanting to have it in-house, and we've reverted back to them hiring drone professionals in to do the work. And I think that for any economy that's growing, that should be the goal, because everything is specialized. You call a PC guy to come fix your PC. So nowadays we went for everybody had a drone back to get the drone guy in to do that. And I think that should be your goal, and it becomes more repeatable as a business, a viable business.
Yes, Ian. Yes, I do agree with you. These are specialized skills. I think the point that I wanted to drive at is to empower these farmers on why they need to invest in this drone technology. So that as much as they might not have it themselves, they need to understand that the cost benefit outweighs the initial investment in it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm sorry, I missed the first half of your presentation. My apologies. But thanks for giving us your time today. Did you help write the book?
I'm sure you'll get a recording. We can keep it in touch if you, yeah.
That's okay. I'm also in the book. I also wrote a chapter. So, we're keeping in touch anyway.
Definitely.
Great to hear from you, Ian.
How you doing, Louise?
All right, thank you. Not too bad. Just excited the power's just come on again.
All right.
The lights are on.
Interestingly, I had a meeting today with one of the universities outside of Dublin, and they were asking me would I go and give a presentation to attract people into the space worlds, because in my country there's not enough people working on space solutions, and in my particular instance, drones. So I think that the world of drones is still yet untapped. We're still in the very early days.
Okay, that's interesting. I saw an article about all these low orbit satellites and sort of consideration about, just the sheer number that are going to be put up over the next 5-10 years. And I mean, it's just a staggering number. So it's interesting that, as you say, what's happening with bringing more people into the space industry.
Yeah, I mean, the navigation ship we've been working on since 2018, we got it working in November. So triple redundancy, aviation quality navigation chip, real time in 3D. And I'm hoping that EASA, the European Aviation Safety Authority, will rubber stamp it and make it the baseline navigation system for all drones in Europe.
Right.
So we're only scratching the surface really of what the potential is.
Excellent. Okay.
Of course, low Earth orbit satellites would really lend themselves to Africa. So currently satellites only really point at cities and places where they can make money, but the idea behind the low Earth orbit is that there'll be a mesh. So all those signals will be available in deserts, in jungles, everywhere. And all types of landscapes should benefit from it.
Oh, fantastic. Because Jagongo and I were chatting beforehand, sort of trying to have access to data and cell phone and Wi-Fi can be a bit of a mission, and that in itself can make it difficult to actually provide these kind of services.
Yeah, well, I think there's going to be a big shift in that now. I mean, they're able to put up a low Earth orbit satellite for as little as 30,000 euros now. It used to be, so they're able to fit so many in the payload, and they start about the size of a fist all the way up to the size of a washing machine. So they're able to pack them in there and distribute them more evenly. So I think hopefully the South African nation will benefit greatly from it, I hope.
Excellent. Okay. Well,
I'd say South African nations.
May I ask, Ian, what are the applications of all these satellites that are going up in space?
That's a very good question, and there are many. So the Sentinel satellites that are up there are photographing the planet every 2 days. So you can actually use that data for free. It's called Copernicus. Anybody can tap into it. Galileo is the satellite navigation. So satellite navigation is actually about timing. So your navigation ship sends a signal to the satellite, and the time it takes to bounce back, it's able to work out where you are. But you need about 7 satellites to triangulate that. Now, a satellite is like 30,000 kilometers away, but low Earth orbit satellites will only be 300 kilometers away. So and there will be considerably more of them. So predominantly it'll be about navigation, Google Maps, drones flying between buildings, It'll be about boats, cars, electric cars, anything that you can really apply satellite usage to will benefit. And of course, from the initial layer of low Earth orbit satellites are from SpaceX, and they're for internet connectivity. So in theory, you'll be able to set up your internet access anywhere in the world. I believe at the moment you're not allowed to move the receivers around for SpaceX, but you will be able to later on when there are more satellites to facilitate it. So you'll be able to go out into the desert, do a day's work, and stream your data straight through your satellite hub there and then.
Nice. I guess it's just the same way cellular posts came up all over the place, the same way satellites are coming up all over the place now.
Yes, somewhat similar, but in relation to the low Earth orbit satellites, you won't need to put ground facilities down except the one you bring with you. So you won't be reliant on having a tower near you. You'll have a receiver in your vehicle, and you'll just pop it out, and you'll instantly have a streamable internet service.
Got it.
Well, that sounds good. Anything that's going to improve connectivity and access is great news. Although the article that I was listening to was or reading was actually sort of saying, well, what are we going to do with all the bits and pieces that are floating around and may or may not cause collisions? So it was quite an interesting article. It was more to try and deal with the waste management than it was about the benefits of these systems.
Yeah, a lot of the waste is actually out on the outer reaches where the larger satellites are. And let's be honest, there are millions of pieces. We're not talking about thousands, we're talking in the millions. There is the European Space Agency. I'm sure other space agencies are doing the same. They're giving funds to people to develop ways to collect that junk. But the problem with too many low Earth orbit satellites will be when they are in situ, how do we launch rockets? Because we'll have to find spaces in the network to put the rockets between the satellites is actually going to be an issue, I believe.
Yes, that would be an interesting. Yes, it was a fascinating article. I can't remember if I saved it, but I think I ought to, because it was really quite interesting in terms of the problems that are coming because of the extensive use of these low Earth orbit satellites. They suggest.
Well, you can blame the Americans, Russians, and Chinese for the junk that's up there, because it certainly certainly wasn't Ireland, and it certainly wasn't Africa.
No, it wasn't us.
In fact, Ireland are launching their first satellite, I think this month. The first Irish manufactured satellite, shall we say?
Excellent.
So
okay.
Yeah, yay! And it's about the size of a lunchbox. So it's not nothing spectacular.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Excellent. Does anybody else? Sorry, I've got a bit of cough. Does anybody else have any comments or questions for Jagongo? It's awfully quiet out there.
Still digesting the information.
Oh, here we go. Is that label?
Yes, it is. Hi, Louise. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I've been waiting for my books.
Ah, we must sort that out. Sorry, sort that out for you. Definitely.
Okay. Now, I also joined a bit later, but I think it's quite interesting. Especially here, we need to learn about a lot of what's happening in the industry. I think a lot of regulations here needs to change. I think I'll be going to Ireland. Please accept me, Leanne.
You're coming to Ireland?
Yes, please.
Oh, you want to come, or you are coming?
I want to come.
Oh, well, you're more than welcome to crash on my couch and come hang out and learn. You can have my daughter's room, but she might give out about it, so you'll have to use the couch. But by all means, you find yourself in this hemisphere, you're more than welcome. We'll make space for you, introduce you around.
Awesome. I'd like that.
Yeah, it's very cold though, so you want to bring a few layers.
All right, I'll do so. Thank you so much, Luis.
You're welcome. People think they know how cold it is until they get here. Louise, what have you got going on in your world?
At the moment, just sorting out, updating one of my original books about using drones for agriculture. And that's proving, I think I might just rewrite the book entirely because there's so much that's changed. But yes, getting on with that. But otherwise, from this side, I think we've got some regulation changes coming from somebody passed on some information to me yesterday, which may or may not help. It depends on your viewpoint, I think. But yeah, I know that there's been some interesting legal cases with people using fishing drones because you're not allowed to do that. You cannot deploy anything from a drone unless you're licensed to do so and have permission, etc., etc. And I think somebody's just been done for distributing the fishing drones, let alone using them. And I've actually encountered someone here flying, and I said, look, what you're doing is illegal. And he said, but it was okay, I was flying it down the coast, so it's somewhere else. And I'm not sure how that made it legal, but that was his excuse. It was quite interesting. But he was bigger than me, so I couldn't really give him too much trouble.
Yeah, since the new regulations kicked off here, a team of people have been appointed to now track down illegal users. One company took off in the middle of a main street with an M300. They lost their license. There are a lot of people being punished at the moment. I was the first person to be investigated in the country, which is somebody took a photograph of me and reported me. I think it was more malice. An investigation was carried out. I was found not to have been breaking the rules, but I'm glad that they're doing it. So I would venture to say that maybe 5 people have lost their license in the last couple of months, and about 40 people have had a proper slap on the wrist.
Well,
so
it's
coming.
Jagongo, is there any activity like that in Kenya, or is it still a bit early?
No, it's sort of a bit calm on this side. Things are not as crazy yet.
Can you tell me what's the availability like? I presume that there are those that can't afford it. There's those that can, just like in every economy. But are the drones readily available, or do you have to go hunting them out to find them?
Yeah, the drones are readily available. You'll find that there's quite a lot, because I was shopping around for the Tello the other day online, and the guy I was asking about referrals on how to bring in told me that, hey, why are you looking for it? And these things are in the shops around. So there is a lot more than people know about. There's a lot of excitement. That is what is good. And the authorities are really trying to catch up. But the good thing with the authorities is, as they try to catch up, they're also giving operators and hobbyists a lot of free will to wiggle around, as they also figure out what are these people actually doing with their drones before we get in and clamp. So there's a lot of chatting.
That free will is very important. We had it here for a couple of years, and in actual fact, it did reveal what was good and what wasn't. So that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Although I only live in a country of 4 million people, so.
Is it only 4 million? Gosh.
Well, 5 million if you include Northern Ireland, who are our brethren.
Okay. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, since the famine in Ireland, when the English starved 2 million people to death, we only just reached, and that was in the 1800s, we've only just reached the same level of number of people here a couple of weeks ago as we have since the 1800s.
Gosh. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So
the British were very unfriendly in several places. And then they wanted to know why we didn't join Brexit. Well, let me think about that.
Now we know why.
Yeah, well, English people kept asking us, why didn't you guys join Brexit? We're like, well, my great-grandmother's family were starved to death. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting a bit off topic now.
No, it's a current topic at the moment, isn't it, on your side? So yeah. But I was just going to ask again, Jagongo, I'm just curious, you kind of hinted at it there. Do you feel that the Civil Aviation Authority in Kenya is supporting the industry, or do you think they're still sort of wary of it? And I like the idea that you sort of said there is a degree of freewheeling, which I think is a great way of addressing this, rather than immediately going for a cutoff, sort of can't do this, can do that, that sort of thing. But I'm curious, what's your feeling? Do you think it's a supportive role that they're playing, or are they still trying to find their way?
Yeah, I think they've pretty much figured that you can't fight it. Drones are actually here. And to our surprise, they're actually really catching up more than the industry would have wanted or would have expected. So yeah, they are encouraging and they are giving us a lot of free will and to wiggle space, because they're also in a point where they know that they need to learn how these things operate and what they do and what they're capable of. And they've figured out that the only way to learn and to regulate it better is to actually see it happening. And yeah, so interesting things are happening. I mean, Zipline just launched their operations this week in Kisumu.
Okay.
And yeah, so they're starting their medical deliveries in Kenya. It's interesting to see that this is actually led by the local government, which is pushing CAA and all those other guys to make it happen. So that kind of competition and excitement is really, really, really encouraging for the industry and for us drone people.
Excellent. Okay. I didn't realize Zipline were coming in. That's good news.
Great to see Irish money being spent well.
Yeah, it's making use.
The Zipline is funded by the guy who owns Ryanair.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he's doing a real good. Him and Bono, actually, from U2 and others. But yeah, and they own a company called Irlandia, and they're buying land all over Europe in all the major cities to build vertiports.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they have an interesting concept going on there. And they're really, really aggressive with their work, which is quite good.
Yes, I think it was about 18 months ago or so that we, I can't remember if we did it on the Fireside Chat, but it was certainly on the Coffee Connection, where they did a live walk you through their operations from getting the call for, can you send bloods to this particular clinic? And then obviously loading it into the box, loading it into the drone, and then pinging it off. And it was neat. But watching this, the setup for capturing the aircraft when it comes home was a bit hairy, I must say. It's quite precise, but it seems like you've got to hold your breath as that aircraft comes in, and you hope it hooks onto that wire.
That's what satellite navigation is, Louise.
Okay, all right.
I would. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Ian. Yeah, I was about to say that I was going to plan a trip onto the launch pad sometime very soon and just see how the whole thing happened, because I'm also very mesmerized by it. It sounds like some amazing piece of technology going on there.
Excellent. Oh, well, send us some photographs if you get that chance.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. They're up for it. I just need to create time and take my youth group there. They'd be really excited.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, that would be a great opportunity. What a good idea. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm just seeing we're getting close to just about coming up to the end of the Fireside Chat. I have to say thank you so much, Jagongo, for joining us this evening, and for your comments about the importance of partnership, but equally some of the challenges that are still need to be addressed, and how we need to present, how we need to respond to those. But thank you so very much for joining us. Please come back again. Yeah, I'd certainly like to hear how your trip to Zipline goes. And thank you. We've lost a couple of people, but thank you for everybody who attended and who offered some comments and thoughts, especially Ian. Thank you very much. It was that was very especially about the satellites. That was very useful. Thank you.
Always good to talk to Louise.
Thanks, Abe. But yeah, join us again. We're back again on the first Thursday of March, which is the 2nd of March, same time, 17:30 hours South African Standard Time. And next month, in March, we will be having the Flying Labs from Panama join us to give us a presentation on the activities that they undertake in Panama. So that would be very interesting to see what goes on in a different part of the world, and a different flying labs as well. So yeah, so please join us next month, and yeah, keep well and keep flying safe and look after yourselves.